Hello, I'm Anna and this is my colleague Vlatko. We come from Arham. It's not on the slide, but it's like an hour drive from here, a little longer. And if you have time to visit it, it's a very nice old town. I suggest coming there this weekend. If you like Leuven, you will probably like Aachen too. We will, in the next couple of minutes, we will tell you what we think about action research, what it is, and how it's interconnected with learning analytics, and how this connection could improve actually teaching and learning. So I have a question for you now. What's the impact of learning analytics? That's actually a question that was raised yesterday at the teaching analytics workshop that we were also attending. And I think it's a very interesting question and it relates very much to our talk. I don't really want you to answer now, you can discuss that later. But I had a look at several papers and probably maybe one of yours and tried to collect all the goals that have been mentioned with learning analytics projects. And you don't have to read that now, we can go back to the paper, but well, mainly they can be divided in goals that inform the design of learning analytics tools, goals that inform what educators should do, so about teaching, and goals for students. For example, the tools should track the users, they should provide visualizations that are usable, and the teachers should monitor the teaching process, they should start to analyze, they should reflect, they should become aware, and on the same is true for students, for example, they should also reflect and improve their learning. So this is great. Learning analytics improves actually teaching and learning. That's what we can learn from that. And I want to set the setting a little bit for how our results from our study can be used. So I want you to imagine you had the task to select a learning analytics system for a large university, of course, because it's improving teaching and learning. So what are you going to do? Probably at first you will see what's out there. What do other universities use maybe? What's useful maybe to copy? What kind of indicators are really helping the teachers and the students? But you would also have to take your context into account because not all scenarios are the same. We have different scenarios. Even within one university, there are multiple ways of teaching. And actually, most of the times, only the teachers know what they are doing and what kind of questions they have, for example. And so let's say your goal was to provide a system that is really able to adapt to different scenarios and to help the teachers to find out more about the diversity, for example, of their students and help them. This is the outline. In the following talk, we will talk a little bit more about the connection of action research and learning analytics. And I'll give you a very short summary of prior results that we used in our study and tell you our research questions, and then Vlatko will continue with the discussion of our findings. So, I compared action research and learning analytics, and you don't have to read this table, but the main thing I thought was important, there are some similarities and there are also some differences. For example, action research, like we heard before as a keyword, is about maybe professional development, learning more about your teaching and improving it. And it's mostly human-driven. Often it's also related to qualitative research. You collect your own data, you do this manually, and it's really individual participatory design. The problem with this is a little bit maybe the time constraint. If you collect your data yourself, if you analyze everything yourself, you won't have time for teaching maybe anymore. So learning analytics on the other side, it's more data-driven, as we hear from many talks. It's more automatically, maybe sometimes semi-automatic, and there are more standardized approaches that have been reviewed by experts. But sometimes I get the feeling that maybe we have missing data because we concentrate so much on the data we have, but we don't concentrate on the questions that we have. And this is how action research and learning actually can inform each other. This slide represents our view on the connection. So action research roughly is also a cyclical process of developing a question, of formulating a research plan, collecting data, analyzing it, developing an action plan, and then actually implementing the actions in the next round and having new questions. And ideally, you also record your project and share it with others. And learning analytics in technology-enhanced learning is very much about the collection of data and analysis and reflection. And if we combine these two approaches, this could be very helpful to inform learning analytics tools. I want to concentrate in the next couple of minutes on the questions that teachers should have, but I will come back to this later. So if we just have a look at the questions, we can find out many things that we should do in learning analytics. These are a few example questions of a prior study that I did. I collected all the questions of a German e-learning conference that were related or done within action research or projects similar to action research to find out what kind of questions arise during technology-enhanced learning. And I could have also, well, I did, but I could have also asked teachers, of course, what kind of questions they have. But you can imagine maybe in a big university like ours, there are also lots of courses that are not so well developed, like in learning analytics. We have, for example, a learning management system, and very many courses just upload PDFs. That's not really e-learning. So I also wanted to find questions that are relevant in higher level e-learning scenarios, but also the ones that are interesting for the low-level e-learning classes, I would call them. We used these questions to answer our research questions. And the research questions are based on the assumptions that there are many questions that have not been answered yet by the tools that are available in the field. And so actually we wanted to find out what kind of questions have not been answered and what future research should have a look at. We had the feeling that we need teacher data indicators, and we wanted to find out if there are any teacher data indicators. What we mean by that, Vlatko will tell you a little bit more about that, but it's shortly also collecting data about what the teacher does and about the teaching, and then relating it to the behavior of the students. So you can actually, as a teacher, see what's the impact of what I'm doing. And while we were looking at the literature, we were actually missing impact analysis. So we found many goals, what the impact should be, but we actually didn't find any proof how, well, that this impact is actually reached. So actually, I invite you to discuss with that in the discussion phase how this impact could be evaluated.
Hello, everybody. I want to thank Anna for the beautiful introduction. So basically, first of all, I'm going to discuss about the method. So basically, our study is based on previous research about questions that teachers have or teachers want answers to in action research. And another part of our study is basically analyzing learning analytics tools that are available, they're out there in the field. So basically, we gathered like 27 learning analytics tools, and we collected around 198 indicators from them. After that, a couple of people from our research group tried to categorize and structure them separately, and then we merged those two categorizations into one scheme. And this actually merged scheme helped us to get an overview of what's actually out there on the, in the research field. And after we did this, we actually tried mapping the questions we have from the teachers from the previous research to the indicators we gathered. And that we came to an interesting conclusion that we saw that actually not many questions have corresponding indicators. And the first problem we came to is like how to map questions to indicators. And we had a lot of problems identifying which questions exactly this indicator answer or represent, because only few of them were very well documented. For us, also, it was unclear what kind of data exactly these indicators need in order to do their calculations and represent this information to the teachers. And only a few of them had information about their limitations in their usage or in their representation. Basically, this showed us that we need to think about a way or figure out a way how to present and document this indicator in a structured way, so we have information that shows us what does this indicator do, what does this indicator need, or what are the limitations of this indicator. And if we as researchers have problems identifying what these indicators do, I mean, imagine what normal people in a normal learning environment will think about, or they'll have even more problems struggling to understand what this indicator means. Here you can see a small table that we have the indicators here and we have the questions up there, and we tried mapping them. This is basically how we did our mapping. And after this, we have the results, and we found out there are like questions that can be answered easily and questions that cannot be answered easily. So the easy questions to answer are the quantitative data, basically because they use the user-generated data. You can do a lot of statistics and you can present this information. The questions that are not so easy to answer are basically the qualitative measure. And these are concerned with satisfaction of students, preference of students, which learning materials they like, which learning materials they don't like. Also, we didn't find many indicators that actually have that measure the effects on performance. There probably are a lot of indicators that are in the research field, but they weren't in the tools we analyzed. And also, we found questions that cannot be answered by a single data source or by a single indicator. So we need to do complex correlations between different data and different indicators just to answer some questions. And during all these discussions, thinking, analysis, we actually came to an interesting conclusion that we actually have missing teacher data indicators. We don't have those indicators, and we would like to have them because they can have a lot of impact on the students. The closest thing of teacher indicators basically we came upon is a social network analysis paper that combined student and teacher data or interactions with the course events or the course events or how they interact with each other, and they basically correlate all of the course phase and try to represent it as a sociogram. And we did a couple of brainstorming sessions to see how we can actually identify scenarios in which teacher data indicators could be interesting. We have 3 possible scenarios here, but I'm going to talk about only the first one. And the first one is basically forum participation on the teacher side. We think that it would be good for the teachers to see the pattern of their participation and online presence in the forums. And it would be interesting to see whether the participation and the online presence of the teacher actually inspires the students to be a lot more active on the forum, instead of him not being present in the discussions. And for the other 2, you can actually read more information about in the paper. And the third research question that we want to discuss basically is about impact analysis. And I want to tell you that this is not the method how to measure impact. This is just a method that we are trying to use at our research group, and we actually strongly invite you to discuss or give ideas or suggestions how we can improve this. And the impact analysis that we want to do is basically, first of all, we need to give the tool to the non-experts, to the users, and we want them to use it like intensively over long periods of time. Because currently we also have a learning analytics tool at our chair, and we are doing impact analysis. And we provided the tool for like 10 weeks to normal teachers in a normal classroom, and we found out that this is not enough time. They need more time to integrate this learning analytics tool in their normal interactions or their normal activities in the classroom. So we need more time, and the feeling is that they actually want it for at least a whole semester to use it, just to get used to it or just to fit it into their routine. The second part of the impact analysis is basically we need to evaluate what's the current classroom state. And this is important because if you know how currently teachers are doing reflection, or whether they are doing reflection on their teaching, or how they're addressing student needs at the moment. And we also did this with questionnaires, and we tried not to reveal any information about what learning analytics tool does, because we thought that this might bias their answers in the questionnaires we did. After we have evaluated the state in the classroom, we actually want to predict which parts of the classroom can be improved. Because this is basically the place where we put hypotheses of like what the goals or what learning analytics should do or should improve. For example, we are looking for science of action research in the classroom. And after we hypothesize this and they've used the tool for an extensive period of time, we want to do exit interviews to see how they personally feel about it, whether they've used it or they've stumbled upon interesting indicators, or the tool itself made them change their action plan. And here is actually where we try to extract the most information about the impact that learning analytic tools has on the teachers. And the last part of the impact analysis is basically the conclusion, where in a before-after fashion, scientists or researchers try to compare what was the previous state of the classroom with the state of the classroom after using the tool. And here also you can the researchers should find out what were the proposed or the predicted changes or the predicted impact, and compare this to the actual impact after, when they get it from the exit interviews. And of course, as we did our study, we were actually aware about our limitations because we were still keeping in the German context, and we were trying to map this to international indicators from 27 available tools. And for the study limitations, I think Anna will tell you a little bit more about it, and then she'll do a short recap of what we talked about today.
I keep this short. We are aware of these limitations. We had like a limited amount of questions that were collected from German scenarios. But I want to argue that this is not so important for what this study concludes, because we need to be aware that every context is different, and in the future there will always be new questions. So, of course, the questions change, and in your scenarios the questions are different. So, really, what matters is that we have like a participatory design when we create our systems, and that we talk to the teachers and ask them what they need and pay close attention to that. So the conclusion is that we think that the connection between action research and learning analytics can be really helpful. In our study, we connected this with, we concentrated on the questions teachers have and came to interesting conclusions. But of course, learning analytics tools, which in the background of action research, can be seen like a virtual mentor for the teacher, could also solve other tasks. They could even recommend to share your thoughts, your reflections. They could provide maybe journals right beside the diagrams and help the teachers to really plan their actions. And well, we found out that several questions have not been answered by the indicators. Of course, we couldn't take all studies into our study, so probably you might say there are questions I can answer with my indicators. That's great. These indicators just have to come to the teacher, and they have to be tested if they can be really useful. So we are interested actually now what's really the impact of learning analytics, and we want to discuss with you what you think, how this could be done, and yeah, how this could inform future tool design.
Hi, my name is Nori Inoue, University of San Diego, and thank you very much for this presentation, because that's something that I'm really interested in. And I guess you guys are asking the right question, even though you are recognizing it's really challenging, because even if we have massive amount of data or high-tech analytical tools, if the teachers do not change, the learning does not change. Research shows that teacher is the biggest indicator of the success in classroom. So I think you guys are asking the right question. But for the teacher transformation through action research entails multiple cycles of the self-reflection and the looking at the data and improving the practice. So how is it possible for us to incorporate the multiple cycles of the reflection on data and the teacher transformation in the learning analytics data, and how could it be used in the for the sake of teacher transformation? And that's something that I'd like to hear more about, especially in relation to what you think is the teacher data indicators. I'd like to hear a little bit more clarifications about what the teacher data indicators really means for your research.
Okay, I understand that several questions. About the iterative process, you can see that in different ways. You can like look at one course, and if you have a look at the usage of learning analytics in one course, you of course can see this as an iterative process. The teacher maybe has some questions, and it would be wonderful if the tool helps the teacher to formulate these questions and choose the right indicators and have a personalized overview. And as soon as there's data, there might be more questions. And probably this will even initiate more challenges for us. And so the teacher would come back and well, teach and then have a look at the learning analytics tool again in an iterative manner. And maybe answer some questions, maybe just have more open questions. And also you can have a look at it and like on the course follow-up, like you have courses that are done several times, like the next year or the next semester again. So you might want to compare data from old courses within your current course. So this should be also something that learning analytics tool should be able to do. And about the teacher data indicators, maybe you want to say something?
For example, in our study, basically, we had a professor or a teaching assistant, I don't remember. She posted regularly stuff on the forum, and when she looked at the indicator about the forum usage, it turned out that less than 10% of the students are actually reading the forum. And then she starts like, I didn't expect this, and then she's like, I will try to advertise the forum so more people read about this information. And we thought that, okay, this is something that, that initiates some kind of actions, because she expected that everybody reads the forum, and it turned out something different, so she can change her actions in order for people to feel more collaborative, to use the forum more. And this is how an indicator might help to see whether the teacher's activity actually inspires actions on the student side as well, and changes in their behavior. And this is just one case, but the thing is, so far there is teacher data that is, you can collect from log files, but also we need to think about ways how to collect qualitative data about the learning offerings teachers have or their activities outside the classroom. Because teaching does not stop in the classroom. Teaching is an ongoing, continual process, and a lot of teachers, for example, it would be useful to see how they prepare their learning offerings, how they rate their learning offerings, on which basis they choose their learning offerings, because it's really difficult when you have a whole variety of learning resources to select the most appropriate ones for your students. And this all has to be researched, has to be investigated to see how it works.
Thank you.
Hello.
We had 27 tools that we analyzed, and we chose these tools because they were mainly for teachers and students. Mainly teachers, because this is related to our context, but some were also supporting both, like also students, and some were also supporting students. But we chose these tools that were cited often and were related to our context. So actually, these tools should have indicators that are applicable in these situations in teaching and learning.
Thank you for your work, and I think it's a great effort to do all this review and to extract what indicators are used and what you can use again. So I'm from Berlin, I'm from Germany, and I understand very well the situation that you can find in German universities and in German teachers. Action research reminds me on evaluation. I think it's a very good approach to support the teacher to evaluate his own concepts, his own pedagogical concepts and his course. And my question is, have you planned any integration of other evaluation concepts that are used in Aachen University and action research, or the tool you are developing?
That's true. Well, I also think that action is very similar to formative evaluation, for example. And of course, in the future, it would be optimal. We have also university-wide evaluations, standardized evaluations that the students fill in surveys, that this could be integrated with other data. And we also think that we should lay a focus on not only the online behavior and the online learning that we can see, but also on the whole learning process. So we are thinking about methods how to collect data about the offline learning. We have now a growing number of smart devices that students use, and maybe we could collect data that is actively given to us by the students to have an even bigger picture, even more whole picture, because right now many tools only concentrate on the online side, but you cannot sometimes really conclude from that, because if maybe a resource is not used that much, maybe we still have students that print their materials and have a look at it in the train, for example. But maybe the students are willing to give us this information, and we want to integrate that as well.
I know that there are central organizations that do evaluation in the whole universities. Do you cooperate with them?
Not yet.
Do you use other data that students fill in forms after the semester?
Right now, this is a research project, and we intend to do that, but that's not really going on right now.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question myself, which will be the last one, since I see no hands raised. Reading through your paper and also through the slides, it struck me that there's one range of questions missing from what university teachers want to know, which either I missed or you will tell me why you think it's missing. That's my question. Why do you think there was no question raised as to wanting to have information from learning analytic systems, how actually students learn, so how their understanding of whatever the teacher teaches develops? Because that I couldn't find in your questions. Is it that the people you asked are so much affected by the state of the art of learning analytic systems that they don't seem that this is answerable currently, or did you just, where's that question? So how's understanding? If I teach a topic as a university teacher, I want to know what my students understand, in addition to all the other questions you raised. So that would be my first question, but I didn't see it on your list of questions.
I have a question. Do you mean how do students learn, or what do students understand?
If I teach like UML diagrams and computer software engineering, I want to know if they understand UML diagrams. If I teach physiology, I want to understand, do they understand how the liver functions? If I teach plate tectonics, I want to understand, do they understand plate tectonics? So, and that plain level, understanding content, which is, I guess, learning.
Actually, I don't have the... I don't really... We had lots of questions that were not all in the paper represented. There were other questions as well. Right now I'm not sure if this actually is in there, but of course, this is an important question. If it's not in there, I feel this is because the teachers assume our questions came from like studies from literature that shared their knowledge about and also did research in it, and they told us about this question. So maybe they get that data from the tests and exams they have. But of course, this is really important. We had several performance questions in there. There were several questions, how do students perform on specific topics? And this was also, how does this correlate, for example, with behavior, with usage of certain materials? Of course, we had such questions in there.
Study